booster ignition, and liftoff, and all systems are go.
Welcome to the Lesbo and the Bean universe. Lesbo and the Bean. LATB, LaTB, where mixed martial arts and the UFC get silly. Big silly. Buckle up and move your tray tables to their upright position. And please, somebody shut that baby up. It's time for Lesbo and the Bean.
Welcome back. Episode 142, the morning after, and what a night it was. I don't even know if I have necessarily words. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that in a UFC octagon. We have seen it out of lower promotions, and I'm talking about the main event. Of course, if you've been under a bus, you didn't see what was going on, but we had the flying Russian coming in and throwing leg kicks after the fight, or throwing, heel stomps all over Dylan Dennis's face. But before we get there, how did the night go for you?
You feel like we shouldn't get into it right away? You make people wait till the end?
I think we wait because we can shoot through just what happened in the card. We both had pretty rough nights on DraftKings, but as far as I saw all over my people I follow on Twitter, nobody had a good night. Nobody.
I had a really fun night, even though the fights didn't go necessarily great toward my way. I'm not a professional bettor. I'm not a professional fight picker, nor do we try to pretend to be on this show. So the enjoyment-wise, I feel like it was all summed up in Derek Lewis. I didn't have Derek Lewis to win, but I don't mind that he did because then we got another great Derek Lewis quote.
I would agree with that.
I don't even want to say until we get there.
And
if we're going to wait.
I think we are going to wait, but if you're not a professional bettor, how did you call that potentially Derek Lewis can always finish it in the third round? And guess exactly what happened. I feel like that call was spot on. I hedged my bets, put some money in the third round on Derek Lewis. That did help me out. But, again, I had Volkov there. So did most other people. And throwing a knee in the last 10 seconds of the fight, not a good idea. But
there was a lot of MMA shows. I was a little jealous that we didn't do a companion. Because there was a lot of MMA shows that I noticed with huge audiences were doing side-by-sides.
It was an unreal night of fights as far as publicity. One of the biggest nights in MMA history.
You guys, it would have been worthless for you if we did a companion, or at least from my end. I was I had a loss for words the whole night. I was so exciting. I kept having to take deep breaths and remind myself. And I really still thought, watching the main card, I did not think it was going to make it to Tony Ferguson or Khabib Conor. I did not think I still thought something was
I agree. Until that first bell rang, it was one of those, I was even saying, I feel at times, watch, Tony Ferguson's knee's going to pop out on the walkout. I was in that boat as well, because all of these fights have been turned over so many times. But before we get to the co-main event, before we get to the main event, we had Tony Martin defeating favorite Ryan LaFleur via TKO round number 3. Martin moving up from 155 twice now at 170, looking better than ever. Ryan LaFleur at 35 looking like he's definitely started to lose that gas tank that used to be his biggest attribute. I like what I saw from Tony Martin there. I've been underestimating this young man for a little bit too long. I really, really like what I saw. Ryan LaFleur is going to start to be a fade, unfortunately. He's looking like he's slowing down a bit more. It's not a complete fade, but that was a tough one. That was a tough way to start the night. We told you here at LaTB, stay away from that.
No, I didn't. That was the first time. Yeah, I didn't. I went with Tony Martin. I had him as my underdog on a lot of my cards, so it started out the night in such a right way for me. Yep. We'll get to the fights that fucked me when we get to them. But Tony Martin was not that guy. I had him on 50% of my cards. And I had Martin by decision. So I didn't even see the outcome being as good as it was. And I don't know if I feel as strong about him as you do, because I'm not a LaFleur lover. Right. I kind of think he's a little glass-jawed. And
LaFleur's lost twice in the UFC ever, this being his second time.
I know, but they've been of recent.
Yeah, they've been pretty much back. There was a win between them.
He's there.
Yep.
He's to the point. He's started to the wilt train.
And I would say that is also due to gas tank, because Oliveira got him.
He's still a UFC caliber fighter. Yes. I'm not saying that about him at all. He's just never been one of my favorites. But I do like Tony Martin. I'm just not going to jump on the hype train because of this, even though I had him to win. Yeah. I still think it's sketchy going forward a little bit.
I just like Tony Martin's movement in there. he was looking crisp, hitting with power, hitting good angles. It looked like a different Tony Martin. Could that be him moving from 155 up to 70 and being like, oh, my body actually works for a full 3 rounds? Because that was his biggest thing. Come second round, Tony Martin couldn't move his arms up because he was so tired. But again, more of a reason for these weight classes to go. I feel like most people know how we stand on either one of those fighters. And then we went to the 155-pound division where Nick Lentz, as a heavy favorite, came in and dominated Gray Maynard. Bad call by the Bean here. Sorry to let all the fans down.
You were heavy on it.
Heavy on Greg Maynard. Luckily, I actually backed off a lot of my DraftKings and only had Gray Maynard on, like, I want to say 50% of my cards, which doesn't feel as bad because I had him on like 80, 90.
Another good reason, you guys, to follow at Zoltanite on Twitter, because if you went heavy on Gray Maynard and weren't following the Bean, it might have fucked your night.
What?
If somebody else who doesn't follow you on Twitter listened to your advice on the show, you were
heavy.
I haven't heard you so heavy on a person.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it was Gray Maynard to me.
I agree. But dare I say, in that second round, though, Gray Maynard was getting picked apart left and right. Nick Lentz looked better than he's ever looked, light on his feet, throwing a lot of kicks, which he usually doesn't do, and moving on the angle. Nick Lentz definitely having a bit of a turnaround in his career. But is it a turnaround because Greg Maynard's looked shot for so long, been hurt, and that was a 10-8 round, that first round. Gray Maynard was holding on to dear life from the pretty much the second minute mark. Lentz smothering him, and in the second round, Gray Maynard hurt Nick Lentz for a split second. It was a firefight for a bit. And then, dare I say, was it an early stoppage in that second round? Even though Gray Maynard got a 10-8 round and the ref almost called it in between, I do think that first round played into that early stoppage of the second.
I'm not going to feel any different about the Carney than I already do. He's one of those guys that he's just pretty solid all the way around with his MMA game, and he will win a bunch of fights going forward and he'll lose a bunch of fights going forward. But it was Gray Maynard. I was never high on Gray Maynard going into this fight, so a win's like, I also think the fight was stopped early. Even though I had Lentz everywhere,
Yep.
I thought that Gray Maynard could have easily gotten me more points on my DraftKings by taking a couple more punches. Because Nick Lentz ended up being one of the guys that really came through price-wise.
136 for the 9,000 range. He was definitely low owned.
And excitement factor, Nick Lentz deserves. He's an exciting fighter to watch. You can say that about the Carney in the Octagon.
Totally.
I like that.
And also throwing out a shout out to his boy Kavanaugh for winning that. Nick Carney definitely being a staunch Republican and not caring about what anybody thinks.
I was feeling so high at this point, like I was all
2 fights
patting
in.
myself. It's gonna be 2-9, gonna be a good night. And then we got into Kutsukaya versus Lena Landsberg.
This ended up being a decision at 135 pounds, and it was a slow roll. The favorite, Kunitskaya, came in throwing Landsberg all over her head. Landsberg, again, only having a gas tank for pretty much that first round, and then it was the 22-year-old, not necessarily using the best technique, but just dominating, showing her will, and out-grappling Landsberg the entire fight. I wish a finish would have come because I thought...
I don't know what to think about either woman going forward.
Yeah, I agree because Landsberg doesn't look like UFC competition.
I agree. And I'm like, the whole time I was looking at her body, she didn't have great muscle definition for UFC caliber fighters. They usually tend to be more muscular. Lena Landsberg just seemed like she was out of her element. She needs to go down and weight or something.
She's also 35 years old.
I know, it's crazy. Kunitskaya, and then I just thought she ragdolled Lena most of the fight.
Yep.
Lena only put like a few good punches in there. Kunitskaya, I'm nervous about her going forward because Lena Landsberg didn't do anything.
I would totally agree with that as well. So if people jump on a hype train thinking that Kunitskaya is this next coming, no. There was very rudimentary throws in there that worked that I feel against other women will not work, and it's going to turn out to be a grind. Then we had a big underdog come through with Scott Holtzman defeating Alan Patrick via TKO. And this, wow, a huge underdog. Hot Sauce Holtzman has made a complete turnaround. He had a couple short notice fights. Gas tank was really hurting him, but his hands were laser beams in there. Patrick is one of those guys that he's a Brian Caraway. He makes people look bad regardless. Even in a win, people don't look good against Patrick. Not in this fight. Holtzman picked apart Patrick everywhere, stuffed his shots, stuffed the takedowns, got back up. I mean, Holtzman reminded me of Alex Hernandez. And there in the body type, Holtzman was shredded, cut from head to toe. He's 35, former hockey player. He's having a revitalization in his career coming out of Top Team, which was his last training camp. But the angles and movement in there for Holtzman, this is someone that if he can repeat that type of showing in his next fight, regardless of who it is, he's going to be a heavy favorite.
If we had an OTW from this card, in my opinion, it would be Holtzman.
Yeah.
Like, if we had a one to watch, it would be him going forward. I thought he put together an amazing
unbelievable game plan.
You're so right about Alain Patrick. He tends to make guys look awful inside the octagon, and Holtzman looked like the better man everywhere. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, unfortunately for me on DraftKings, I was hoping Patrick, I had him on quite a few cards thinking he was going to be able to decision this out with a lot of takedowns, and quickly into that first round I was like, I shit in bed. I shit in bed. I shit in bed. So then we had Aspen Ladd defeating Tanya Evinger, the underdog, via Banshee Scream. This is the second time Aspen Ladd has won via Banshee Scream because, again, on the early stoppage train, not to say that Landsberg didn't get where she wanted to immediately.
Does Aspen Ladd look like a handmaid?
Yes. Yes.
You've seen the Hulu show, Handmaid's Tale. Aspen Ladd kind of looks like the lead actress from said show.
I could see that, especially at weigh-in when she was barely making it.
Does Tanya Evinger kind of look like an aunt? From that show, Aunt Lydia.
No, Tanya Evinger is freaking Eileen Wuornos.
She kind of
She
is.
totally is. And
she's prettier. She is a cross of. She's even prettier than Charlize Theron dressed up as Eileen.
I would agree with that. And
not that looks matter. We talk about the dudes all the time. For all the people that are like, you talk about the ladies' looks. We talk about the dudes' looks and their dicks. We talk about everyone's everything. Everything.
Evinger.
What do you think about this fight? It didn't sit well with me.
I thought it was an early stoppage, as I'm saying. It was a Banshee Scream stoppage.
I also didn't like how Aspen Ladd made weight. I thought it was a sketchy thing going into it.
She had to use a towel.
Yeah, the big UFC where you can't see if somebody's grabbing from the inside of it.
LaTB conspiracies underway. Better watch Ladd's weight.
It's just a little sketchy to me. She weighed in a half pound under. Why get undressed? When your weight class, since you're not fighting for a belt, allows you to weigh in up to a whole pound over. Why was there a need? She was wearing light enough clothes. Your clothes weighed a pound and a half. I call bullshit.
I know. I've seen underwear weigh a pound.
I believe a pound. But to weigh over a pound and a half, that's where I'm just like, It just makes me,
Top sand bottoms for
things
ladies,
that
though.
make you go,
So where do you go with Tanya Evinger here? Because Aspen Ladd kind of looks like she might be going up to that title contender. Again, the division is so light that 2 fights can get you in the top 5.
She has sketchy thing with weight every single time, in my opinion.
She didn't make weight her last fight.
No, that's why I'm saying, is this going to be her thing? They're going to push her. Is she going to be the Darren Till of this division, where they just push her through regardless, and everyone just forgets, like has short-term memory of her last fight, and they just push her through to a title contention?
At 135, who would you say? I would say Kunitskaya because she just came off a decision win, so they're both trending in the upwards. But I also think Megan Anderson at 135 pounds, even though she's coming off of that loss to Cyborg against Ladd.
Megan Anderson? I thought she was a 145er.
Is she? I thought she was
a
willing
natural 145.
Oh, okay. I thought that. I'm thinking all those ladies can move down.
Either. She lost to
Holly Holm. That's what I'm saying. I said that. But I would think even though off of a loss, that could be a stylistic, interesting matchup against Ladd. Ladd could potentially, though, as we're saying, go up to that 145 too. She's having trouble with that weight.
I think Aspen Ladd is, in my opinion, the girl who you call next to fight Cyborg. Oh, I guess it's Amanda. We're going to fuck up that division.
Yep. On to the 170s, though. We have Vicente Luque, biggest favorite of the night, coming in.
Tanya, though.
Yeah, how do we move forward with her, right?
I feel like Tanya, is she at a point that she retires? Or you think this division's weak enough that she still can...
I think she can still beat other ladies. That leg didn't look as bad from as devastating of an injury she had.
She was mentally effed because of the leg?
I think it did affect her a bit, but it was such a quick fight, and it was a throw into top control. I didn't get to see as much as I wanted to from Evinger. And she's one of those Eileen Mornos where you could probably hit her with a chair and give her a beer and she's good.
Aspen Ladd looked huge in there.
Yeah,
huge.
She's a big girl.
She looked huge, bigger than China.
So, on to the 70-pounders. We had the heaviest favorite of the night, Vicente Luque, beating Jalen Turner via TKO round number 1. Everybody knew what was going to happen here. This was a squash match, a 55er coming in and fighting the 70-pounder. And as I said, Jalen Turner is a fun addition regardless at 55 or 70 because he is a really good striker in there. If it was anyone else, I would have probably picked Turner. It's just too big of a step up. Now that Turner's into it, fun addition in there. I really like what I see, but
he may be a sneaky play going forward.
Yeah, totally.
Because everyone's gonna
fade and be like, oh, he lost to Luque. Yeah, Luque's a top 5 guy right now in my eyes.
And a huge 170er.
On top of that, where Turner can potentially maybe move down at 6'3 to 155. With the striking he had in there, Luque had a tough time, and Luque said it himself, like, that dude's good. Like, that was not easy, but Luque put him out.
That boy good.
Jalen was night-night. That was a scary knockout. That was one of those where he had to get scraped off of the mat in that third minute.
The Undertaker had to come in.
Definitely.
I shouldn't even joke about that on this fight card.
For reals. For reals. Then we had a 125-pound bout with Jussier Formiga defeating Sergio Perez via third-round decision. I had Formiga all week long, switched it to Pettis on the show, went back to Formiga, switched it back the day of to Pettis, and guess what? Jussier Formiga came out and got that decision handedly.
So Formiga was your Watterson, because that's what I did with
He was my wager gauger. He was my wager gauger.
Well, I knew he was the wager gauger, but usually the wager gauger we think's
gonna lose, but worth it.
But that's how I felt about Michelle Watterson all week. That exact same feel. I went back and forth on that fight so many times. But Formiga, I listened to LaTB. It was better than expected, and he was another guy I used to get a cheap spot on my DraftKings.
He did allow that. So
the fact that he won, I was like, boop, 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 doo, doo, but it wasn't worth a ton of points. It was like 55 or something. Yep.
With a win, he was pretty much a backpack in there as well, showing that there's deficiencies in Pettis' game.
Is Pettis? Is he stunted, or do you think Formiga's just better than everyone gives him credit?
Or is it that Joey Benavidez is that declined that much?
Yeah, after his last showing as well.
Because that's where he got put into that 2 spot. Where we're like, ooh, Benavidez maybe doesn't look as good. And Formiga just showed that he's still up in that top 5 range where maybe Joey B is someone we need to look against. Not to say that Pettis didn't look good in there. He still is evolving. He has that controversial split decision against Cejudo as well. But, we know on the ground, both Pettis brothers have deficiencies.
Formiga has a huge head.
Yeah, he does.
He has a huge head.
Huge.
So
where do you go forward with either of these fighters? They're both top 5, top 10 guys to me. They beat a lot of other guys.
We're going to watch them fight again one day in this division. It's just a lacking division, and there's not enough going on. There's a conspiracy out there per Dominic Cruz that they're going to be closing this division down.
Oh, I hope not. I like these fights, but it's DJ because DJ did what he did there. But now you have a gold Olympian, Cejudo.
And they're saying that Cejudo moving up to the 135. They're going to be closing this division down. And that also could be him just creating a bunch of poop paper, like shit paper, World Globe News, so that way Cejudo, it puts pressure on him not to fight TJ so he can get that fight. But I just think that doesn't make any sense to me, Dominic Cruz, because TJ said he wants to fight at 125. He doesn't want Cejudo up at 135.
I agree. Again, here at LaTB, we've been big proponents of just add weight classes. Don't take any away. That don't make no sense. Just keep adding them. Just keep growing that roster. It's WME now.
Getting into the main card.
The main card started off with Michelle Watterson defeating Felice Herring. I ended up posting a free bet. Sorry, guys. Going for the submission prop for Felice Herring. Thought she could get it inside the distance, but the atomweight herself, Michelle Waterson, former Invicta champion, ended up throwing Felice Herring around in there, beating her on the striking, landing more kicks, and just showing that wink game plan, staying on the outside. Actually, in the clinch, Waterson had better forearms, elbows to the face, really the cage. Herring, I don't know if she's plateaued. Are those throws Waterson does in every single one of her fights? And to me, they look sloppy, but they keep getting the job done in there. I don't know where to place either one of these ladies, because as soon as I'm high on Felice Herring, she shits the bed. And as soon as I fade Waterson, she comes through, because she has losses against PVZ. So, I don't know where I stand with either one of these ladies, but I mean, right now, Waterson's going to be in that title contention after beating Herring, and Herring can still beat a lot of other women in there, but I'm going to be tentative with both of these ladies.
I know she wants to be in title contention, but she's still not in that
Who,
realm.
Waterson?
Waterson, in my opinion. And I just liked her better in this fight everywhere. In my opinion, Felice is a little overrated, and she always gets a lot of cred because of her body, and I wish I would have stayed with Michelle Waterson. I went back and forth all week with this fight, and even the last day I went back and forth. I just thought Michelle Waterson outshined Felice everywhere. Everywhere. I don't think there's anywhere that... But Michelle Waterson was training with Claudia Gadelha, which we know Felice, we talk about her being friends with Carla Esparza.
Yep.
That was just interesting to me going in. I think... Michelle, though, I don't think she's an atomweight. I also think she looked good at 115. Her body looked good. She looked strong in there. I was surprised at how strong she looked next to Felice. Bumsky.
Agreed. You cannot win them all. And as
Felice
I say
is
that...
there. That's her spot.
Yep.
She will hold
She's
that.
a gatekeeper.
She's a Jim Miller.
That's
where she's going to sit there.
Top 5, top 8 gatekeeper. That's where you get with Felice Herring.
I think 8 stayed at 8 and 9 stayed at 9. I think that was their rankings going into this fight.
Yep, that makes total sense. So, talking about not winning them all, Alexander Volkov won all 3 rounds, as the Bean predicted here. Derek Lewis, low output, always looking hurt. In the first round, Volkov had Lewis all sorts of on. We thought it was going to be a body teep KO. The poo-poo was about to show in there again, but Derek Lewis coming through that third round corner. If you want to listen to a good corner, you listen to Derek Lewis's corner, because they say, you're down. You got to do whatever that. And this happened a few times throughout the night where the corners are like, hey, dude, you got nothing left. You got to go out there and knock this boy out. Derek Lewis got it done in the last 10 seconds of the fight. Unreal. I had Volkov everywhere. He was probably the linchpin of most of mine. I thought he was going to get that first round finish. The better fighter in there, Alexander Volkov. The more power in there, with the bigger head and lunchbox-sized hands. Derek, the black, sweaty beast, Lewis. Them balls were hot.
It is so funny. He is so funny to me.
I agree. Best post-fight interview of all time. Derek Lewis.
He's up there. He's in the top 5
Who beats
guys
him?
for sure. I think Nate Diaz is up there. I think Conor McGregor is up there with post-fight interviews. I think it's Derek Lewis. Gold, pound for pound. Did you see the fake tweet that people put out of Ronda Rousey?
Oh, I loved it. That was a good one.
I thought
that
was
made me laugh.
Funny.
Yeah, that
really
one got me. That
you guys, I'm sure you can find it somewhere, but it says something like, "Who can even think about anything else with Derek Lewis?" Or
Derek Lewis's big sweaty balls.
Yeah,
because he did take his shorts off in the post fight. Joe Rogan asked him, "Why you got your shorts off?" He's like, "My balls are sweating."
Oh, my card was already rough at this point. But I didn't mind the Derek Lewis win. At this point, I had already just settled into enjoying the card and not even giving a shit about anything else, and it kind of pleased me to watch this whole entire thing and the post-fight interview of like, Donald Trump called me and told me to beat this Russian.
That was, again, a great line.
Beat the Russian.
We had all sorts of political stuff going in there. Kavanaugh getting dropped, Putin getting talked, everybody. All political scenes. But in there. The fight IQ of Volkov in that first and second round, on point. Highest fight
Head
IQ I've seen.
movement, great head movement.
He had Derek Lewis hurt the whole time, and instead of rushing in on him, he kept picking up apart, just waiting for that knockout to come. In those last 10 seconds, Alexander Volkov
worked on the body like everyone says you should do. Worked on it the entire time.
fight. But in those last 10 seconds, Volkov throws a knee, which the counter to a knee is an overhand right. Mm-hmm. Why would he do that? It lands.
There was no need. He just needed to stay away for the last 10 seconds.
Just keep teeping. Just keep throwing that to the body with them long old gangly legs. Where do you go with Volkov and Lewis here? I mean,
I think they're on their same trajectory.
Yeah, I think
it's Dakishvili. It's the Dakishvili. That's what happened to Volkov.
Yeah.
He got Dakishvili.
Unbelievable.
Like when Simone beat him in the last 10 seconds of the fight, he was handedly winning the entire time.
Yeah, it was a 30-27.
But Simone, I don't know, didn't he do that again
He submitted
on his second fight?
I don't think he did.
But Derek Lewis will do that again on every fight that he's in. He has just as much chance as winning. All of a sudden, Derek Lewis is like number 2 in the division.
That's the crazy thing. That's the absolute
Derek Lewis versus DC. And I like where he said, hell no, don't put me in there. I'm getting a title fight. My cardio, Joe Rogan.
The best interview. That's the most
trying to play. Me in there with DC.
He hit everything. And then he even said, because we were saying it in the post, when's he going to be on Joe Rogan? And Derek Lewis is like, heard us on the TV. He's like, hold on, Joe Rogan in a week or two. I want to go and smoke weed. And sorry, Derek Lewis, it's sober October.
Yeah, you have to go after sober October.
Get out of here, which officially started for Joe Rogan via the 7th, because I guarantee you Joe went in the back and smoked a little bit after that. It was too hyped of a night. There was too many cops around.
Ooh, I'd have to calm my heart down.
Yeah, I guarantee you. During that piss break, he took a little pen.
There was a few times in the night that I had to like sit back and I was like, oh, do I have an upset stomach? I was just so excited.
It was a roller coaster of emotions all night long. Then we had, at light heavyweight, Dominic Reyes being a decided favorite, coming in against Ovens and St. Preux and winning via decision. A lot of people saw this being a finish, but Reyes coming out and saying exactly what Volkov should have done. He's like, hey, I know how dangerous. Here at LaTB, we said Derek Lewis and OSP in the same boat. Reyes said the same thing. OSP can finish you in the third round, even if he's losing.
Last 10 seconds of the fight.
So, Reyes did what Volkov did it and just backed off and stayed away from him, even though in the last 10 seconds of the fight, Reyes knocked out Ovens and St. Preux, which should have been a TKO.
Do you think it should have been?
Hell yeah. Look at those photos. OSP's eyes are in the back of his head. True. But even then, look at that last 10 seconds.
I watched it. He seemed like he got up pretty quick.
It was Joe Rogan. If you didn't know he was high.
Victory.
It was a decision.
Buzzer. I think it was the right call.
How we know Joe Rogan was high? Because he's like, I'm confused. I don't know what happened. What's happening? And we're like, what? The bell sounded after he got hit. What is confused? Nobody was confused but Joe Rogan. That edible must have hit in between the Derek Lewis commentary.
Where am I?
Yeah, it was. And I was not lost at all. And he's like, what's going on? And then it got really crazy soon
after. He waved
after.
off the fight. He waved it off because it literally was like hit the ground.
Yeah. And Joe Rogan's like, I didn't hear anything. And both other commentators, Cruz and Anik, are like, yeah, Joe, we heard it. What are you talking about? So.
And I think when Dominic Reyes rewatches it, he'll be like, oh, that's why it was a decision.
Yeah.
I thought it was the right call. As much as I had Dominic Reyes everywhere. KO,
yep, me too.
I thought it was the right call.
So where do you go with OSP and Reyes? I think Reyes is in that top 10. Yeah,
OSP can still be any given guy on any given night, and you never know. And we're probably going to see him in Orlando next time he starts in Florida.
Hands down, being tired of shit after the first round.
And he's an older guy, and he's one of the only fighters out of a country that needs, out of Jamaica, that...
OSP's been in the States his whole career. I mean, he's fighting out of Jamaica, but I don't think he's training out of there.
Well, I don't think he's training out of there either. I just think that's how the UFC gets its ratings, is by having different fighters from different places in the world. Like, there's certain fighters we see stay on the roster just because they draw a crowd.
Yeah.
I think OSP is one of those guys, and there aren't a lot of fighters from where he's from that are at this level. So I think we're still going to see him on the roster holding place.
I totally agree with that. Then to the co-main event we go with Tony Ferguson defeating Anthony Pettis. If you saw Baby Pettis get beat, you foreshadowed the favorite here getting another win. Everyone was pretty much on the Ferguson side. And again, as we said before, as Dustin Poirier said, he broke the man, not the rib. And Anthony Pettis was broken in there by the elbows, not by Tony Ferguson. It was Anthony Pettis quitting on the stool in the second round, but T-Ferg,
verbal tap,
came in, showed why he was the favorite, why he's the true champ. He is my champion. Tony Ferguson just cut him apart like he did to Dos Anjos. He just moved forward the entire time. We initially thought, Tony Ferguson's bleeding. The commentators, Tony Ferguson's bleeding out of his mouth. He's dying out of his mouth. No, it was Anthony Pettis getting cut from the bottom due to those elbows. I mean, what do you really take from there other than Tony Ferguson's knee is 100%? We thought that leg, first two kicks of the fight, Anthony Pettis targeted that leg.
I felt like everyone was being biased because we all knew the severity of Tony's injury going into it. And that is, I'll tell you what I was doing for the first minute and a half of the fight. I was just staring at Tony's knee.
Yep.
I didn't even watch anything else going on. I was just staring at Tony's knee. So then after my bias wore off and I started to watch the fight as a whole, I'm like, I don't think Tony's moving awkward. I think he's just moving like Tony. Tony is awkward. That's why I think he would be one of the hardest guys to train for, because every single fight is so weirdly different from the fight before it. The one thing that we know Tony Ferguson can do, which somebody could have used that advice later on, is that Eddie Bravo plan of squaring up and fighting off your back. And
throwing elbows
he might
from the
as well
bottom.
have had switchblades.
Yep. He cut Anthony Pettis not only on his nose, his eye, his hairline, one of the biggest hairline cuts, that if that would have been up over the brow or near the eye, that fight would have been stopped. But because it was so high up in the hairline, it was bleeding down the side of his face. Great picture of Anthony Pettis being on top and licking the air. Did you see that? Blood rolling out. That was dope. That was dope.
I appreciate what has happened mentally for Anthony Pettis in this fight, which I noticed with him heavy going into it, is that Anthony Pettis has seemed like he's accepted his role as one of a gatekeeper, but also one of the seniors of the sport at this point, where he seemed like he had a good time in there even in his loss.
They were both smiling. I loved it. I loved it. Showtime is a fitting name. He has those type of highlights. But if I saw a Showtime move, I saw a Showtime Superman punch by Tony Ferguson like 3 times off of the cage.
Agreed.
That was dope.
I also like what Tony Ferguson did in this fight is he realized, he even said he was so nervous coming into this fight. It had been ring rust for him. It had been so many days since he had been back in the octagon. And I think it was almost perfect placement of the UFC in a favor for Tony Ferguson to put him as a co-main on such a huge card so that the media did ignore him and step back off of him for a little bit. It looked like Tony had his mojo back in the press conference after the fight.
So, did you listen to the post-fight presser?
Yes.
So, Tony Ferguson giving us some tidbits of lovely information. He has not sparred for over 4 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. Love it.
It's super smart. And we were saying less and less these guys are hard sparring.
We've been saying that for a while, but if you got anything, he's coming out with a rehabilitation line of products, because that 6 month that it usually takes to even start turning around from that injury, Tony said he did it in 3. And as we're saying, that knee looked good. So be on the lookout for that. Whatever that man's using, it's working. Maybe you have to have
he
a little...
said part of it he felt like was quitting drinking.
Right. Him and Eddie stopped for this whole camp.
Well, no, they both quit, I think, completely.
Completely?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
They were both dry, I think.
And it wasn't Sober October. This was far before.
Far before it. I think Eddie, part of it was that he felt like his flat earth conspiracies were delegitimized when he was drunk talking about them.
Which is next level thinking as well. It just proves like, hey, you're not going to make me look stupid. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, like, it's not because I'm drunk. That's not why I'm saying whatever.
Exactly. So he's realizing that people are seeing him from that outside stance.
I am so happy Tony Ferguson's back.
Agreed.
I love how honest I love his candor. He is so awkward. I cringed a little the whole time I watched him, but it's part of...
That's the point.
I felt like if he were breadcrumbs and I was Hansel and Gretel, I would have gotten eaten by a witch. Like, he would have not helped me out of that woods, because listening to any question, it would be like, hey, why is it raining today? He'd be like, because a cloud gathers precipitation, and then that precipitation gathers energy like you wouldn't believe, like the energy of the sun, and the sun is revolving, and you're like, where the fuck is this going? I am never confounded.
Let be conspiracy. Is Tony Ferguson a flat earther?
I actually have wondered that a few times watching this whole thing.
You know, the Mexicans got some crazy ass beliefs. Eddie being his number one mentor there for a while now.
I don't know.
But what this does for the 155-pound division, I mean, I guess we got to talk about the next fight before we could talk about Tony versus either one of the next 55ers, because those are the next fights, and there's going to be some ramifications coming, some repercussions. There's going to be some time off for both fighters. Both fighters. I mean, is this the most egregious thing we've seen in the octagon other than the dolly flying through the window? We had Khabib Nurmagomedov jumping over the cage after he submitted the number one McGregor McChicken himself.
Let's talk about the fight before we get into that. Before we get into that, what did you think of the fight?
I saw it. If you're listening to LaTB, I told you guys I didn't post a free bet because I don't know why. I guess Felice ended up clouding my judgment. But I was saying round 4 or 5, bet on Khabib, because I feel like in the later rounds, once that gas tank starts to hit for Conor, it's going to end up. And in the first round, that takedown came quick in that first round. Was it in the first 30 seconds? Khabib dove on those legs and then he rode out pretty much the rest of that round. Second round came around. Khabib lands a right that hurt Conor more than any punch I've ever seen. Ever. Who's ever knocked down Conor? I mean, he got up quick. Did he hurt? Yeah. I feel like this was a harder overhand, right?
I think he almost got knocked out by Nate, partial exhaustion, and that's why he gave up his back to Nate in the first fight to begin with.
On the ground and pound? Mm-hmm. I would say that standing-wise, this one really got him, but I think it was due to the setup that Conor was waiting for a takedown and Khabib threw a right instead of going for that shot, because after that first round, Conor was trying to defend it, but he got up, he did well. I would actually give credit to Conor where he got back to his feet.
Round 1,
yeah,
he looked better than anyone anticipated
else,
him to look. Even though he got taken down and exactly what everyone thought was going to happen happened, He took minimal damage, very minimal damage in that first round. But his cardio took maximum damage, which is kind of what everyone knew was going to happen too.
As the later rounds
come on, you guys. You know I'm a Conor dick rider. I know it's weird for a girl to say that, but I had him to win against Floyd. Like, come on.
So, closing wise, the odds never came in. It was stayed at a minus 170 favorite. Lesbo being right on that, because I said, wait guys, wait, don't put the juice on it now. It's going to be minus 115. It wasn't. Khabib stayed the favorite. Where the money was to be made was in those prop bets. And your boy, the Bean, put money in the 4th and 5th round after our podcast. And then the day of, put money on the 5th and 4th round Khabib. That ended up cashing out plus 1,800 for Khabib. Ended up saving a lot of my bets throughout the night. Because it was a rough night. It was a rough night. As far as bets coming along.
It was rough. I had a Bean card on my DraftKings, so I had Khabib on a card, and it was a beautiful Khabib type score.
But it got balanced out with Gray Maynard, just for that out there.
It really did. I wish I didn't go Gray Maynard. And I would have never, out of the things you said, out of the other people that you said to go for, I would have never normally picked Gray Maynard, but you were fucking
I know.
You were into it. So Conor did better than we thought in the first, and then was it the second round that some people actually thought Conor could have won, or the third? There was one of the two rounds.
I thought people gave him the first round. One of the judges gave Conor the first round, which I thought was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
You
obviously had that.
But that was, that was the only one that I saw.
And then I was going to ask, is it a 10-8 because he knocked him down?
I thought so, yes. Because anytime anyone gets knocked down, it's a 10-8.
And there was some other fight I gave it. It doesn't matter when the Conor could be, but...
So
yeah, it went pretty much how if you're a hardcore MMA educated fan, exactly how you thought it would go.
Totally.
You're like, hey, Lesbo, you didn't have that. No one says I'm educated. I just like what I like. I'm biased as hell.
You need that bias. You need that bias
I
sometimes.
just wanted Conor to win, and I didn't want to. And I'm kind of a Khabib hater.
Why? Is it because he jumped over the ring and stomped all over your boy Dennis Dallas's face?
I didn't even see them touch.
They initially touched. It was kind of like a Hulk smash. Khabib lands in front of Dylan Dennis, and then it starts a flurry. But I mean, the Dagestani fighter was taking on the corner, Krav Maga, and all those homophobics ran real quick. It turned into a brawl on the side of the cage. As that's happening, we have some of Khabib's homeboys jump into the cage and start a strike with Conor. But Conor did strike one of his cornermen up. Maybe not a cornerman. The guy who was holding the hat. Conor struck him on top of the cage. They both go in the middle. They duke it out a bit. A dude in a red shirt comes in and strikes Conor some more. Cops are involved.
One of the guys looked like
he was another fighter.
He was another Magnum.
I couldn't tell you the names because they're all Magomeds and all Makashevs and all Mikapovs. All
Russian
of them.
racist.
Yeah.
When I try to guess what, but Magomedov.
I couldn't tell you the names,
Yeah.
but there were other MMA guys that are officially banned from the UFC. Dana's already said it. You're never going to see those guys back here again. Maybe not even in the United States, honestly.
He did say they're going to have a problem getting a visa.
Yep, 100%.
So, all the mayhem. It's crazy. And I've had a lot of time to think about it. I watched the post-fight presser. Khabib did come out. Conor did not. Did you watch the post-fight presser?
I did. Khabib going to get smashed by Papa Khabib. He's going to get smashed.
He in trouble?
Yep, because he did. It was the first time we did see. I guess we got to go back. We got to go back and say LaTB was 100% right. We said this got to Khabib. It didn't get to him in the fight. It accumulated after the fight. That was when Khabib was like, okay, it's not enough. It's not enough. I got to really make you guys pay. And the emotions got to him. It boiled over. This is, though, why everybody that I saw, every fighter, I kept retweeting fighters. Every fighter I saw said, hey, guess what? You fuck with the bull, you get the horns. You talk a bunch of shit, you get smacked. This is why other fighters don't go into camps, coaches, family, kids. Conor does that regularly, but usually wins. So the opponents have no choice but to say, damn, you got me. Sorry, buddy. Now he had someone smashing him and say, no, fuck you. You still don't get to talk to me that way. These daggy guys, it's life or death for them. These guys are next level. I just am seeing other pro fighters be like, Conor got what he deserved. And I don't like what happened because it puts a black eye on our sport. But I think it does show a lot of other fighters why you don't talk about other people's family. You talk about the fight, talk about the fighter, say he's punchy, say he's slow, say that. But when you come at, let's say it was D and Mini Conor, I bet you Conor would have been like, whoa, you don't talk about them. And Conor habitually does that to his opponents.
I don't think there's any lines. I'm a freedom of speech person, though.
Uh-huh.
And if it's in America, regardless of whether it's Americans, you have a freedom of speech. Like, it's protected here. And so you can say whatever you want. It's shit talk. There isn't a line in the sand with shit talk. And you take it out on the person inside the octagon. Especially if you're a professional. A thug just fist fights. But a professional fighter takes care of that shit inside the octagon.
So what was the more thuggish move? Was it the dolly through the window that dropped a couple fighters off of the card, or was it jumping and causing all sorts of riots? Here at LaTB, we were also right. B-Shop called it. I don't want to be anywhere near that ring after whatever outcome, because the belt was not even put on Khabib after that. Because Dana White said, dude, it's gonna rain on us if I put this belt on you. And there was people getting slept all around the ring, all around the stadium, the whole night through.
I don't like to put something else on the other side. I think the dolly thing was despicable. I don't think that Conor did it on purpose. I think it was like, oh fuck, I didn't mean to shatter glass all over everyone. Do I think he meant to throw a dolly at a bus? Yeah. Do I think he meant to shatter the bus window? No. It was in New York. He has whatever fines he has in New York for that thing going on. that's a different incident and has zero to do with this incident, in my opinion. This incident put a bunch of fans in danger, not just a bunch of fighters. Like, fighters, it is what it is. It's a whole different thing, and they're all getting paid from it. It's costing Conor tons of money.
Not even. It's good. Habib, how much is... Habib didn't get his purse.
Yeah, but I think Khabib, the other because I'm gonna unbiasedly, if you're a Conor lover, you're gonna hate this, but the emotions peaked after a fight. Is Khabib, here's my, are you fucking bullshitting?
Give it to me.
Is he the first person you ever seen jump out of the octagon before?
No.
Love him or hate him, if, let's say, Conor McGregor, for instance, who we've seen jump out of the octagon before, or who did we see jump on his...
Jose Aldo,
or any of these people.
Multiple guys,
If you're a huge Conor lover, if you're a huge Jose Aldo lover, that could create a friggin' stampede riot toward him, regardless of whether it's bad reasons or good reasons.
Totally.
If other fighters are getting fined from jumping out of the octagon, then that fine is that fine. You can't make it special because he punched Dan and Dillis unless Dylan Dennis presses charges, which Conor didn't press charges on any 3 of the guys that were arrested of Khabib's crew.
The classiest move of the night.
And something I regularly say, we have a problem in our society with being more mad than the victims, which I don't want to do that for Conor and Dylan. If they aren't mad, if they're not pressing charges, I don't want to hold Khabib accountable. He said some raunchy shit. Would it have got to me? Yeah. Do you still have the freedom to fucking punch someone in the face after they say it? Yeah, you got the freedom to do it. You got the freedom to get arrested afterwards.
True.
But it's still, they got in there. Are they the first people we've seen jump inside an octagon? No, we've seen Conor jump inside an octagon. And did he get arrested for it? No. He created a whole rigmarole too inside the octagon. Didn't he go after a fighter that just was fighting?
No, Conor was in there. His boy had just won, so he jumped in out of the crowd and just celebrated with his boy, but they didn't fight. But what this does do is create a prison. Are we going to start to have security around the outside of the ring now? What's this going to create? Because this sets a precedent for changes. I guarantee nothing's going to be the same in UFC from this point. I guarantee it.
I don't think every fight is nearly going to have this kind of energy around it. I think the amount of energy around this fight. And Khabib was told to, he knows he did the wrong thing. He could have left. The weird reason it's wrong is all of a sudden Conor, who really would have looked like a dipshit at the end of this fight, it was perfect ending to a Conor fight if you were a Conor hater.
Yep.
He was taught a lesson inside there. Khabib looked good in every way. He just had to hold his temper against Dylan Dennis screaming whatever on the outside of the octagon at him. He just had to have his Joe Rogan interview. Tadizer, Khabib leaves the hero. It just puts a really weird taste in a lot of people's mouth and gives a whole bunch of Conor fans ammunition for, look at blah, blah, blah.
So what comes first? The Tony Ferguson fight or Conor Khabib 2? Because if you think that there's no 2 coming down the pipeline, you're fucking crazy. As much money as this fight made, as much talk as we're talking about this post-presser,
I think it's fucking ridiculous.
It's gonna all blown up. It's gonna be blown up.
It's not even. It wasn't even a close fight.
I agree, but it's the money. It's the freak show fights. It's not about the fights we want.
But I also think it's not about the belts anymore.
Proven.
I think that Nate probably loses to Diamond. And then I think the Nate Conor fight sells more than any other fight ever in the history of the UFC. It'll be the new biggest fight of all time. Even though they're both coming off a loss. I think that will still happen.
I like that. So where does my Kukui stand?
Who?
Kukui. Yeah, it was a monumental night.
Here's my conspiracy about it. They're going to lean hard on Khabib financially. They're going to lean really hard on him, Vegas, because Vegas is all wrapped up with the UFC and everything they got going on. And I think the rumors were true. I think Khabib was going to walk away from the fight game and just walk away beating Dana's boy and being done with that. But now financially, he might have to fight again because he's not going to get his purse. Everything, the UFC is going to tie it up for him in whatever way they can to try to make him financially fight again. And he was the belt holder, so he got a percentage of the pay-per-views.
Guaranteed.
For all intents and purposes, he could have had a red panty night until all this. And Dana swore on the life of his daughter that he wasn't even thinking of pay-per-view numbers at that moment because he was so disgusted in everything that transpired afterward.
Which this has happened a few times. I feel like
Why
with
are people
Dana White,
swearing on the life of their daughter?
I agree with that. But Dana White multiple times has just come out with total fake news like, oh, this is 100%. 100% not happening, which means it's 100% happening when you hear from Dana White. As the fake news comes out, do you really think the number one, Vladimir Putin, talked to your boy, Khabib, right afterwards?
Oh, all these talk of Vladimir Putin, and he called me, like...
He said, good job.
I thought that part on Khabib, like, you didn't need to say that at all.
1,000,000%. Unless you have the phone and you have Putin on there that says, good job, like, unless you have it recorded, you don't bring that up. You save that for yourself.
It's like every single thing that got to Khabib, we got to see it at that. It's like Khabib erupted, and we saw the worst side of Khabib, where I thought the way he played it the whole entire time, cold-ass Russian, nothing got to him, I thought it was brilliant. And so to see him unravel at the end is like... Conor gets to everybody.
But that's when he got to show emotion because it was such a job. Once he got the job done, then he could show his real feelings.
No, it's just Conor got to him.
Yeah, we've been saying that day one.
Yeah, but it's just proof that all the people that are like, Khabib doesn't care, Khabib doesn't, that...
Everyone's
it's
human.
more testament to how much he held it together at those moments.
Totally.
Like,
Totally.
Damn.
Woo!
I don't know. Wow. I am spent though.
It was
I don't even
unreal.
know if when there's UFC fights again.
Me neither. I don't even want to look because I just need to chill out today. Maybe I watch some foosball. Maybe I spend some of that money I made on sports betting, dwindle it away a bit. But we got some fun fight cards coming up. 2-2 or 2:30 and 2:31.
What's this foosball you speak of?
Somewhere where guys like to kneel. I don't freaking know. It's just some DK. You know, DK has some exposure to there, but I don't necessarily watch the games. Just some more degenerate betting.
Sorry, we made you guys wait all the way to the end to talk about the full entire
I'm not.
load.
That's what happens. You gotta wait till the end. You gotta earn it. You gotta earn it.
Oh yeah, and I'm kind of more sorry that we had the whole incident where I forgot to turn off my phone in between.
Everyone's having a little hiccups. UFC's having a little hiccups. LaTB's having a little hiccups.
Oh my gosh.
It's the way it goes.
So,
Monumental night though. Monumental night. We'll never forget this night. I guarantee you're gonna remember. I remember their first fight 20 years from now. Remember when Khabib jumped out? Like, we're gonna talk about this for a very long time.
So you don't think that Derek Lewis's balls were a bigger story?
Nope. No way. This has never happened in the UFC to the level that it happened.
It'll make UFC the talk of the sports world all next week.
100%.
Next week. But that's Conor McGregor. So,
True.
And this is LaTB, and thanks for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe.
Let's go the beat.
Thanks for listening to LaTB. For all things Lesbo and the Bean, head over to lesboandthebean.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.